This is the story of the year 1914, when an 8-year-old boy was playing in a village in Japan. Then he saw a machine running on 4 wheels. This was Ford Model T, which surprised the boy very much. This was the day when the 8-year-old boy had his first ride on cars and mechanical parts. His name was Soichiro Honda, and who knew that in the future we would see his name on every small and big car. In 1906, Soichiro Honda was born in a small village near Mount Fuji in Japan. Along with his father, blacksmith, he also worked as a cycle repairman. Honda's 5 siblings had already died of various diseases, so his parents had high hopes for their child. But he was not educated. However, Honda was more interested in repairing the cycle with his father. When he was 16 years old, he saw an ad for a job in the newspaper. 8 shokai named technicians were needed at this automobile service station in Tokyo. Honda wrote a letter to the company for the job, and it was fortunate that a positive reply came from there. This was the time when Honda left his home and school and set off for Tokyo with the hope of earning money. His dream broke when he reached Tokyo with 8 shokai. The owner of the company began to clean up Honda's car and put it on babysitting. What would Honda have done? On one hand, he left his home and parents. On the other hand, he was taking unnecessary work from them. He was feeling ashamed to return to his hometown because he did not have the courage to face his parents. For the next few months, he was forced to do odd jobs there. After a few months, the owner of the 8th department also started taking the work of the workshop from Honda. Honda was very interested in this work from the beginning, so he could understand things easily. In a few months, he had learned a lot about all kinds of cars and their parts. During this time, the 8th department also made 2 sports cars, in which the first car was the 8th Daimler and the second was the Curtiss. These 2 cars were made using used engines, which also won the first position in the Japanese Motor Car Championship in 1924. Honda was still a good mechanic, but in this race, he was sitting as an engineer with the driver. This was the event after which Soichiro Honda made motorsports his religion. For the next few years, he continued to work in the 8th department and continued to improve his experience. 1928. In 1928, at the age of 22, his owner decided to open another branch. This branch was to be in Hamamatsu City, which the owner gave the responsibility to Honda to run and send there. Honda started this new branch of 8th department with 1 worker, and in just 2 years, he reached 30 workers. He had now become a brilliant mechanic and racing driver. He took advantage of his skills and created a sports car for his owner. This car could run at a speed of 120 kilometers, which broke all the old records. This record has been the highest record of Japan for the next 20 years. The importance of Honda had increased in the heart of the owner of the 8th department. He wanted to open his own workshop, but maybe fate did not allow it. During the 1936 racing, Honda had an unfortunate accident. In this accident, his life was saved, but his left arm was fractured, his shoulder was dislocated, and he had many wounds on his face. He was seeing his life end here. Neither he could do the work of a mechanic, nor could he participate in racing. After many months, when he recovered again, he requested the owner of the 8th department that he could no longer do the work of repairing. In fact, he presented the idea that why not now? That he should now start a separate company to make spare parts. The 8th department stakeholders immediately rejected Honda's idea. They were already making profits, and no one wanted to take a new risk. On this, Honda decided that he would open a parts manufacturing company alone. In 1936, at the age of 30, he met his friend and opened the Tokai Seiki Heavy Industries. And he opened his friend, Soichiro Kato. Soichiro Kato became the president of Tokai Seiki Heavy Industries. The company had been opened, but Honda had no investment to run it. He worked for 8 years a day, while at night, he tried to make his own engine piston for his new company. For the next few months, he kept running on this routine, but he could not get any success. On the contrary, he had become weak by constantly shifting. After a while, a failure stopped his way. That's when he took an admission in a university to gain skills in metallurgy. After 3 years of continuous hard work in 1939, he finally succeeded in making a piston. Now he quit his job as an art technician and started making pistons full-time. But he didn't know that there are still many faults in his piston. He offered his piston to the Toyota company. However, Toyota rejected 47 out of 50 designs. This news fell on Honda like lightning, because now he had no way back. He began to visit all over Japan to understand the requirements of various companies. He went to different factories, met car manufacturers, and spent the next few years understanding the market. And after that, Honda made pistons again. This time, these pistons had passed the quality control of all the companies. He started getting orders, and once again Honda saw his dreams coming true. To fulfill the orders, his company hired 2,000 workers. Who knew that Honda's happiness was just a few months' visit? In 1941, Japan jumped into World War II. And the ministry took many Japanese companies under its control, including one of which was the Soichiro Honda. By downgrading Honda, the company was made its senior managing director. And things got even worse when the company's workers were put in military service. The next 3 years went by in a very difficult state, but in 1944, there was an incident that completely ruined Honda's hopes. During the air raid, a missile hit Honda's factory directly. The situation in the country was getting worse and worse. Japan seemed to be losing the war. Then in 1945, 2 nuclear attacks occurred, which broke Japan's back. After this incident, Japan surrendered in front of the Americans. The war was over now, but Honda had lost everything. It lost its remaining assets, Toyota, to 4.5 million. It was sold for 50,000 yen, and once again became jobless. This was not only the case with Honda, but the whole of Japan was going through a very bad crisis. The economy was melting, food, water, and inflation had broken everyone's back. It was extremely difficult to get public transport, because Japan had run out of petrol. Meanwhile, Honda got a small engine of the Japanese Imperial Army, which they used to run wireless radio. Due to his habit, he came up with an idea. He thought, why not put this engine in a cycle and solve the problem of his transportation? This will make transportation easier and cheaper. Because at that time, people were already very worried about the price. So when they saw this engine on a cycle, everyone liked this idea very much. A few used engines were given to Honda, but people's demand was so high that now Honda has designed its own new engine. This was the first time in history that a Honda logo was seen on a machine. Honda did not have enough money to make these cycles on a mass level. Therefore, he wrote an open letter to 18,000 shopkeepers. People trusted Honda so much that 3,000 shopkeepers gave him a positive reply and gave the money in advance. In the next 3 years, Honda made such a motorcycle, which was in line with the market requirements. It was launched under the name of Super Cub, which immediately made the market go crazy. This model was so successful that in 1958, it left behind America's own Triumph and Harley-Davidson sales. Because Honda was very fond of racing, it decided to make a sports bike. It would go to various bike races and note down the special features of winning bikes. At that time, such sports competitions were used as a marketing tool for manufacturing companies. In a few years, Honda's first sports bike was launched. which won the first position in the 1962 International Racing Competition. This race made Honda's name famous all over the world. In the 1960s, Honda had become the world's largest motorcycle manufacturing company. And by 1968, it had sold 1 crore units. After 62 years of his life, finally, Soichiro Honda had achieved success. But the dream he had since childhood had not yet been fulfilled. Honda now wanted to move towards car manufacturing. Many people refused to do so, but they did not listen to anyone. At that time, companies like Toyota and Nissan had already set up their business in Japan. It was very difficult to make a new place in the market. Honda launched its first pickup truck T360, which failed. After that, the sports car S500 was launched, which could only sell 1,300 units. After many years of hard work and many different designs were rejected, finally, Honda Civic was launched in 1972. This is the car whose new models are still famous all over the world. In the 1980s, Honda Motors was Japan's third largest manufacturing company. And in just 10 years, it became the third largest in the world. Today, Honda's name is seen on cars, motorcycles, boat engines, plane engines, and dozens of power tools. Soichiro Honda retired from the company in 1973, the year after the launch of Honda Civic. And on August 5, 1991, this journey of his life ended forever. I hope you will also like and share this video of Ciivc documentary. I would love to hear your loving comments. See you in the next wonderful video.